Okay, so 2025 is literally right around the corner. Today is October the 31st. So probably by the time you see this, it will be November, and then we will basically have December before it's a new year. But it really has me thinking about cameras lately, because if I've heard correctly, there's a rumor that this month in November, that there is a Sony event potentially going to happen, or a new announcement from Sony. So I really start to think, like, what in the hell would entice me with my current lineup of cameras that I currently own? What would entice me to want to buy a new camera? Um, to be honest, it's really not that much. So, okay, if you don't know, I own an FX3, an A7S3, and an A7 IV, and a few other cameras that are Sony, like an A7 III, the old A7 III. I have an RX100 Mark 7, and a bunch of freaking. Obviously, a lot of us own a bunch of action cameras. So, but anyways, talking about full frame cameras right now. I don't know. Like, I'm just thinking with my current lineup, I don't know what my upgrade path would be, or what could incentivize me to want to spend. Let's be honest. I'm looking to not buy any more hybrid cameras in 2025. I'm looking for cinema cameras now. I think I've had my doings with hybrid cameras, and I'm moving on to something a little, I don't want to say better because they're basically all the same cameras, but I'm looking to stay with the FX lineup. And I feel like my natural progression would be FX3 Mark II, or whatever they're going to call it, or an FX6, or something above an FX6 at some point, if I get to that point. But I feel like that's my natural progression of upgrade, my upgrade path. But again, I love the FX3 so much, and I have all these other cameras. I'm thinking to myself, well, what could they possibly offer to yet again incentivize me to buy a new camera? I don't know if there's much. There's a few things. Like, okay, yeah, if you're going forward in 2025, your whole lineup is gonna be 6K and above. Okay, I'm starting to think, yeah, that might make sense to purchase one of these cameras. And I feel like that might be where they're headed, because I think 4K has been pretty much maxed out now, and I don't know if there's any more room for upgrade in that area. Like, the natural progression is 6K and 8K now. But is that enough for me to want to just disrupt my workflow right now and buy a 6K, 8K camera? I don't really know. I think there would have to be more that the camera offers for me to want to fork out. And let's be honest, like, at minimum $3,800, $4,000, $6,000, depending on if I want an FX3 or an FX6. So, I mean, we're looking anywhere between $4,000 and, let's say, $8,000, depending on what prices look like at that particular time. So, man, I'm just thinking, like, man, I don't know if I would be ready to upgrade. There's so much other things that I want to buy. And again, I feel like the camera industry's technology is starting to become like sound or audio industry, where I think we've made so many evolutions and jumps in technology. You hit a ceiling, and I don't know if there's been a lot of new innovation in the audio industry. And I'm speaking of, like, I'm not speaking of software, I'm thinking of hardware. Like, most of these freaking microphones have been the same since the 70s and 80s. Now, sure, there may have been new technology that's come out, but I feel like the capsules and whatever's capturing the audio is pretty much almost the same. The technology has kind of like hit a ceiling. For instance, like my 416, my Sennheiser 416, it's been the same. I mean, sure, and probably some minor upgrades here and there, but there's haven't been any like major leaps in technology in the audio industry. and again, specifically talking about microphones. Um, so I feel like cameras are almost at that point. I feel like we still have room to improve, but let's just think about Sony and Canon for a minute. We're, I think, at the pinnacle of autofocus. Like, it's so good, man. I can't tell the difference between an A7S III and, let's say, the newer A7 IV or the A7C Mark IIs or whatever you want to insert camera here. Same deal with Canon. You really can't tell the difference between these newer cameras now, last year's models, and what's coming out now. So I'm thinking to myself, as a Sony shooter, like, man, I'm in a sweet spot right now. And I feel like this allows me to focus on other areas like audio. For instance, like I just did a few interviews, like 3 interviews. And one thing for sure that I noticed is I need more audio gear as far as microphones. I have one FX, I have one 416, I have one MKH50. Being that the way we do our interviews, my wife speaks and asks questions and kind of, the basic interview style. I like the 416 and I need another one. I like the MKH50, but I need another one. So I'm feeling like, okay, I'm really in a good spot with my cameras. I think it's time to add to my audio gear. I need more microphones. I need another 416, which I probably won't buy a 416. It'll probably be an 8060, which is, I think, the upgrade to the 416. I don't know if it's really an upgrade, but it's I don't know, the latest version of the 416. I probably will buy another MKH50, and these things aren't cheap. We're probably looking at $2,800 just for 2 microphones, so I can have the same sound quality. I'm looking at potentially buying a new Mix Pre system, something that has 4 or more XLR inputs. So it's like things like that. I'm like, man, there's so many different areas that I need to touch on. Like, I have a lot of great lights. I have a Amaran 300C, but all of my cameras are Amaran, which is nothing wrong with Amaran. 300C, P60Cs. I have 2 P60Cs that are light in the background. One's light in the background. I have an Amaran 100D. So I have some good lights, but I feel like, hey, at some point, I really need to get one good aperture light or whatever that means. I mean, I'm into the Amaran ecosystem, so basically that's aperture. So like, I can control all these lights with one app, which I do right now. My app controls that light right there, which is the what is that? The B7C. That's the B7C. This is the aperture, Amaran 300C. This is over here the P60C that's lighting the back there. So getting more lights, getting more light stands. Now I have the Varipose going here, but like, that's what I'm thinking. It's like the technology for cameras, I think, are in such a good spot to where I feel like now I need to focus on other things. I need to focus on buying better lenses, more lenses and better lenses. I need to focus on getting my audio gear correct, making sure I have everything that is equal. Because in my last interview, I could tell a big difference between the MKE 600 and the 416. It was a night and day difference. So like, that's where I'm at. It's like, man, the FX3 is so good. The A7S III is still a really good camera. My A7 IV, sure, it has a few flaws with overheating, which I've never had it overheating. I've had it overheat one time, and that was during a podcast with me and my wife in this room here. It got a little hot in here, and it did give me a high temperature warning, and it shut down right when we finished. Like, we were super lucky. But I'm good with those cameras, man. I don't know what they could offer me. Internal ADs, I don't really care about that. Let me see. Giving me false colors in the camera, again, I don't really care about that either. I've been using Sony for so long and they've never had false colors. There's apps now. Like there's the Monitor Plus app that I own. There's the Monitor and Control app that's really great. Like I'm to the point where I don't even need a monitor. I have an Atomos recorder that I use as a monitor, but I'm to the point where I honestly don't need it. I can see myself right now in my phone with the Monitor and Control app. And I also did purchase the Monitor Plus app several years ago. So it's like I have different options for recording myself and seeing myself here. And the Monitor Plus app has false colors, so I don't really need those things. But anyways, that's my thought process right now. I think 2025, just to put a conclusion to this, I think 2025 going forward will probably be the year that I focus on everything else outside of cameras. I'm going to focus on getting more audio gear. I'm going to focus on getting at least one more light system. And I also want to focus on getting a newer recording system as far as the MixPre system. I'm going to get a MixPre 6, MixPre 6.2, or something maybe a little higher than that has a little bit more XLR inputs. That's my thought process. Anyways, I hope you guys are doing well. I'll see you in the next one.